Welcome to The Debate. Today, we aren't just questioning the morality of a villain. We are questioning the very geometry of the world they inhabit. For a long time, the narrative has seemed simple. The seven archons and Celestia represent the human realm. That's order, safety, life. And the abyss represents the opposite, corruption, monsters, the void. But if you've been paying attention to the journey of the traveler's sibling, you realize that binary isn't just flawed, it might be the lie that holds the whole world together.
Oh, it's definitely a lie. And we really need to stop treating the Abyss Order like they're just, cartoon villains trying to take over the world. We're dealing with an organization led by the Traveler's sibling, someone who has, for all intents and purposes, beaten the game. They have reached the end of their journey, they've seen the truth of the world recorded in Irminsul, and they've decided that the only way to fix Teyvat is to break it. So the question isn't, is the Abyss evil? The real question is the Abyss the only thing real enough to shatter a false reality?
And that is a terrifying proposition. So to frame this clearly for everyone, I'm arguing from the perspective of the human realm. My stance is that the Abyss acts as a kind of radioactive contagion. It is fundamentally incompatible with biological life. And while the current order under Celestia is, yes, authoritarian, it acts as a necessary shield, an arc, if you will, protecting humanity from a universe that is fundamentally hostile to our existence.
And I'm taking the opposing view. I argue that your arc is actually a prison cell, that Teyvat is a terrarium built on stolen authority and censorship. The Abyss Order, despite their brutal methods, they possess the only methodology capable of breaking the samsara, that endless cycle of suffering. They aren't trying to sink the ship. They're trying to force the passengers to wake up and realize the ship is actually a cage.
Then let's look at the walls of this cage, because I think you're underestimating why they were even built. We should probably explain the cosmology here. In the Before Sun and Moon texts, we learn about this tri-realm structure. Think of Teyvat like a sandwich. You've got the light realm, the domain of the dragons, pure elemental energy that's just too intense for humans. Then you have the void realm, the abyss, which is pure entropy, pure destruction. The human realm is this fragile, artificial buffer zone in the middle. It's the only place humans can exist without either burning up or dissolving.
Artificial is the key word there. The human realm isn't natural. It was manufactured by the primordial one, Phanes, who literally stole the elemental authority from the dragon sovereigns to carve out a safe space.
Exactly. And thank goodness he did, because when that barrier breaches, we don't get liberation, we get body horror. Look at the withering in Sumeru. That is the abyss leaking into the world. It didn't free anyone. It caused Elizar, a disease that literally petrifies human tissue. Look at the dark mud in the chasm. Or, the cataclysm 500 years ago. The monsters created by the alchemist Reindoter, creatures like Durin and Alinus, their very blood corrodes the fabric of reality. My argument is that the abyss is synonymous with forbidden knowledge. It is information that the human mind literally cannot process without crashing. So, the Abyss Order wants to tear down the eggshell protecting Teyvat. If they do that, they aren't freeing us, they are opening the airlock of a submarine at the bottom of the ocean.
I get the submarine analogy, I do, but it assumes the ocean outside is just water. What if the ocean is the actual universe, and the submarine is keeping us from seeing the stars? We know, thanks to the intelligence recovered by Scaramouche and the Doctor, that the false sky is a real concept. The stars of Teyvat are a hoax, a canopy designed to dictate fate.
Just because the roof is artificial doesn't mean it isn't keeping the rain out.
But it's not just keeping the rain out. It's keeping the people down. The false sky locks Teyvat into a closed energy loop. And if the stars are pre-written fates, then free will in Teyvat is a localized illusion at best. The Abyss Order, led by the sibling, is fighting to shatter that illusion. The sibling isn't brainwashed. They have seen the truth that our protagonist hasn't reached yet. They understand that as long as the heavenly principles, the laws of Celestia, exist, humanity is trapped in this harvest cycle. The Abyss Order wants to reconnect Teyvat to the true cosmos, the Dark Sea, because even if it's dangerous, it's real.
Is real worth extinction?
you're glossing over the survival rate of this liberation. Let's look at the Nod Cry. This is a region mentioned in some of the deeper lore that exists outside the protection of the Archons. It's a wasteland. Or look at Natlan. We recently learned that during the Cataclysm, the ley lines there were so utterly destroyed by the Abyss that they had to create the Night Kingdom just to catch the souls of the dead, so they wouldn't just vanish into nothingness. If you shatter the false sky, you are subjecting every normal human to forces that forced even the mighty dragon sovereigns into hiding.
That is the wager, yes. It's a massive gamble. But look at the alternative. The alternative is erosion. It's the slow, grinding loss of memory, self, and ambition that the heavenly principles impose to ensure nothing ever challenges them. You talk about safety, but safety in Teyvat comes at the cost of stagnation. And the Abyss Order isn't just trying to blow things up for fun. They are trying to seize the mechanism of destiny itself. They're searching for the loom of fate.
And this is where the whole liberator narrative just falls apart for me. The loom of fate, it's a machine, right, designed to weave new ley lines, effectively allowing the user to rewrite reality. But look at how they built it.
It required power, immense power.
It required a soul. In the Khaenri'ah storyline, we saw that the prototype of the loom was powered by the consciousness of Khaenri'ah Albrecht. He was an innocent child, an illegitimate son of a Khaenri'ah noble who had been turned into a helichurl. The Abyss Order, specifically his own father, Clothar, used him as a battery.
Hold on. Khaenri'ah was already a helichurl. He was suffering the curse of immortality, trapped in a rotting body, losing his mind. Using him as the core of the loom gave him a purpose. It allowed him to weave a reality where perhaps he didn't have to suffer.
That is a utilitarian nightmare. You were justifying the sacrifice of a child's consciousness because he was suffering anyway. That is exactly the kind of logic that makes the Abyss Order villains. And just think about the implications of the loom of fate. If the sibling succeeds in using it to weave a new destiny, say one where Khaenri'ah never fell, what happens to the current timeline? What happens to the people living in Teyvat right now?
They might be overwritten.
Exactly. It's the ultimate Ship of Theseus problem, but weaponized. If you rewrite history to save the past, you are effectively killing everyone in the present. The Abyss Order views the current population of Teyvat as collateral damage in a temporal correction. They are willing to hit delete on 500 years of history, all those lives, loves, memories, just to prove a point to Celestia.
Not to prove a point, to save the species from a slow death. And you keep defending the status quo, but look at the leaders of this resistance, the 5 sinners of Khaenri'ah. These aren't random terrorists. We're talking about Vedrfolnir, the visionary, Reindator, the gold, Sertology, the foul. I mean, these were the wisest, most capable humans to ever live.
They were the architects of their own destruction. These sinners attained transcendent power by embracing forbidden knowledge, and what happened? They didn't save their nation, they triggered the cataclysm. Vedrfolnir is Dainsleif's own brother, and Dainsleif, who was actually there, fighting on the front lines while these geniuses were meddling with the cosmos, calls him a traitor. The Abyss Order worships these people. How can you argue they are pro-human when their leaders are the very ones who abandoned humanity to chase divinity?
I just view it differently. I think the sinners realize that you cannot fight the heavenly principles with swords and shields. You mentioned the curse earlier. Let's really look at that. When Khaenri'ah fell, the gods didn't just kill the people. They cursed the purebloods with immortality so they could never die, only erode, and they turned the mixed bloods into monsters. That was the work of the Shade of Death, Renova. That wasn't a war tactic. That was vindictive cruelty. The sinners realized that the system isn't just strict, it's malicious. They abandoned the battle for the city to fight the war for the logic of the world.
I disagree that the curse was purely vindictive. Cruel, yes, absolutely, but consider the nature of forbidden knowledge. We saw in Sumeru with King Deshret that this knowledge behaves like a pathogen. It drives people mad, it spreads. If Celestia hadn't nailed these locations or quarantined the carriers with the curse, that corruption spreads to the entirety of Teyvat. The curse acts as a containment field. The Abyss Order isn't trying to cure the patient. They are trying to break the quarantine because they believe the virus is evolution.
Or maybe the virus is only dangerous because the system rejects it. But let's look at the Archons. You paint Celestia as the only bad guy, but the Archons are the wardens of this prison.
The Archons are victims too. Look at Nahida. Look at Farina. These are not willing jailers. Nahida had to erase the previous Dendro Archon, Rukkhadevata, from existence, effectively deleting her own mother figure from history, specifically to save the world from forbidden knowledge. That is an act of immense love and sacrifice. The Hydro Archon, Focalors. She deceived the heavenly principles for 5 centuries and sacrificed her own divinity to save the people of Fontaine. The Archons are trying to save human lives within the system. The Abyss just wants to burn the system down, regardless of who is inside.
But they're still complicit. The Gnosis, the chess pieces they use to channel power, are literally the cursed remains of the third descender. The entire power structure of the 7 nations is built on a corpse. The Tsaritsa, the Cryo-Archon, understands this. That's why she's collecting the Gnosis. She's effectively aligned with the Abyss's objective, burn away the old world. When even one of the 7 gods decides the system needs to die, you have to ask yourself if the Abyss was right all along.
The Tsaritsa is a perfect example of why the ends justify the means logic fails. Her methods have traumatized the world. The Fatui and the Abyss Order are 2 sides of the same radical coin. They both believe that their truth is more important than individual human lives. But look at the Traveler, the 4th Descender. They are consistently cleaning up the messes made by both sides. The Traveler saves the people the Abyss endangers. That suggests there is a third path, one that preserves the human realm without submitting to the tyranny of the false sky.
Is active. And the sibling traveled with Dainsleif, saw the futility of his gradual approach, and rejected it. Dainsleif wants to stop the Abyss, but he has no plan to stop Celestia. He's just maintaining the status quo of the curse. The sibling realized that you cannot fix a cycle of suffering from within the cycle. You have to weave a new tapestry. And yes, the loom of fate is terrifying, but it offers the only chance to restore human agency without asking a god for permission.
Agency is a hollow word if you have to massacre the innocent to get it. The sibling might think they're saving the world, but from where I'm standing, they look a lot like the monsters they claim to be fighting. They're using the same forbidden knowledge, the same disregard for life, and the same arrogance as the heavenly principles. They're just wearing a different colored coat.
And from where I'm standing, the sibling looks like the only person brave enough to perform surgery on a patient that is slowly dying of cancer. The surgery is bloody? Yes. But the alternative is the morgue.
We are nearing the end of our time, and clearly, the chasm between our perspectives is deep. To summarize my position, the Ark of Teyvat, flawed as it is, keeps us alive. The Abyss represents dissolution. You cannot save humanity by unleashing forces that dissolve reality. We should be trying to fix the ship, not blow a hole in the hull while we are still at sea.
And to summarize my position, the ship is sinking, and the captain is lying to you about the lifeboats. The human realm is a comforting lie, maintained by memory wipes and celestial nukes. The Abyss Order, for all their horror, represents the harsh, cold light of reality. They are using the loom of fate to weave a destiny where humanity isn't a pet in a terrarium.
Terrifying prospect. But perhaps the most crucial takeaway for our listeners is the position of the Traveler. As the 4th Descender, they're an external variable, not bound by the false sky nor corrupted by the Abyss.
Exactly. The Traveler represents the unknown, but until they catch up to the siblings' understanding, they are fighting in the dark. The ultimate choice may not be between light and void, but whether to maintain the Ark or risk the dark sea.
And as we move closer to the end of the Teyvat storyline, that choice is going to be forced upon all of us. Whether the sibling is a villain or a savior depends entirely on whether you believe the sky is worth saving. This has been The Debate. Thank you for listening.
Keep your eyes on the stars, even if they're fake.